John is a very special person, John, if you'll come forward, because before he took up this role, he had a glittering career also in the private sector. I also want to pay tribute to John because he is the reason why there is Chapter 6. Chapter 6 is called Working with Government, and that chapter was put in after I ran a conference last year for the state sector on a pro bono basis. And I just heard John speak, and as so often happens when you hear John speak, he inspires you. So I went away and I wrote this chapter with his help and the help of some other top CEOs in the state sector. So John, come and talk to us about how government can help business succeed. Thank you.
Kia ora tātou. I recognised immediately the ripple of excitement when people realised I was the reason that Chapter 6 was in the book, because I know you've all read it, well at least some of us have, and those that will have, I know, been particularly excited by Chapter 6, because what Chapter 6 talks about is the reality that there is real potential in the public service as there is real potential in business. And there is enormous wasted potential because we allow prejudice and misunderstanding as much as process to get in the way of business and the public sector working together. Now, I'm a public servant. I'm proud to be a public servant. I chose to be a public servant. It was not a decision based on remuneration. It is fair to say, ladies and gentlemen, that many of the people that I have worked with in my career were confused and bemused by that decision. Because as they see the public service, it is faceless, it is grey, it is bureaucratic, it is indecisive, it plays backseat to the rock stars that are our politicians. And we just saw one of the big rock stars of the political world on her feet here. And so it's not an immediate environment in which people who want to make an impact might be seen to act. But I have to say to you, to pick up the language that Mai used in introducing this session, that if you want to make an impact on the future of our country, then being in the public service is absolutely the place to be. That is not to say that business cannot make a great contribution. That is not to say that those whose language is top line and bottom line and customer and balance sheet, those who think daily about profitability and margins cannot and do not make a significant contribution to New Zealand as well. But it is absolutely to say that together we will be enormously more powerful and more successful. So here's the simple proposition. There is a business case for business to engage with public sector people. And here it is. Number one, in this hall, sovereignty of Parliament. Dicey. I know the excitement many of you will have about Dicey. Dicey, all those years ago, made a simple statement. He said, our politicians in Parliament assembled can do anything except make a man a woman or a woman a man. They can do anything. They have remarkable powers. They set and inscribe the laws under which this country operates. Now, if you don't like that idea and you're a business person, if that doesn't give you some reason for engagement, then I think you're in the wrong game. In my mind, if you're in business and you're thinking about how to build your business, if you're in business and you're thinking about how to reach your customers and markets, then you have to be engaged with government. And while the rock star politicians are of course the place that you will first think to go, it's important to understand that they work with the public sector and often through the public sector. And the Minister's comment that finding the right point of engagement with the government is an important ingredient in success is one that suggests, I think powerfully, that finding the right point within the public sector to engage also enables you to be more successful. So there's proposition number one. There's only three. Proposition number one, they matter. What happens in this place matters, and you as business leaders should, as a consequence, engage with it. Here's the second proposition. The public service exerts enormous influence on the lives of New Zealanders. It's not simply about deciding whether or not to make particular administrative decisions around tax collection, around customs, around social welfare and other elements of payments. The reality is that this grey, faceless bureaucracy that people often deride, in fact, I'd love to think that people hated us in the same way that Judith said that we hate lawyers and we hate politicians. People don't really care about us. I'd like them to have an opinion. I'd like them to have a positive opinion, I have to say, rather than the negative. But nonetheless, the reality is that the public service has a huge impact, and I would say a powerfully positive impact on this country. And so if you're in business of dealing with New Zealand, if you want to understand how to deliver service to New Zealand, if you want to ensure that you are connected to New Zealand, in my mind, you must be engaged with the public sector. Here's the third reason. They get progressively more exciting. Well, if you're from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, they do anyway. But here's the third reason. Here's the third reason. You have to be engaged with government if you're going to go offshore. Now, I know that there are plenty of people who'll say to me in that sort of heroic southern man sort of way, we can do it ourselves. We'll do it alone. We can make it on our own. And many, many, many New Zealand businesses do, and many, many New Zealand businesses can. But let me say unequivocally that when we do it together, that is offshore, when we go offshore together, when we line up business and government in the offshore environment, we make an enormously greater impact and we better ensure our success. There's only 4 million of us. David Lange, I see David Cunliffe over there, but David Lange once described New Zealand as shaped like a dagger, strategically positioned, thrusting at the heart of Antarctica, by which I think he meant we were largely irrelevant. And the reality is for 4 million of us, 5 million if you take our diaspora, to make a real difference on the world stage, billions and billions of people, we've got to work together. And when we do work together, we can make that difference. So here's the simple point. If you want to make an impact in our country, whether as an author and lawyer, as Mai has and does through her firm, whether as a public servant, as many in this room are doing day by day now, whether as a business leader, as many in this room are doing, you must understand government, you must engage with government, but most importantly, we must understand and engage with and work with and respect each other. When we do that, this country, Aotearoa New Zealand, will be unstoppable. Nau reira, tēnā koutou, kia ora mai, tēnā koutou katoa.
I told you so. I told you so. Thank you, John. That was fantastic.